What if the plant sitting on your windowsill right now, the one you picked up on a Sunday afternoon, the one you watered this morning without a second thought, was slowly poisoning your cat? Not dramatically, not obviously, just quietly, day by day, leaf by leaf. And what if your cat was already showing signs of the lethargy, the loss of appetite, the occasional vomiting, and you'd been blaming it on something else entirely? This isn't a scare tactic. This is something happening in homes across the country every single day. The ASPCA receives over 400,000 calls every single year to its animal poison control hotline. 400,000! And plants' ordinary, beautiful nursery-bought plants are consistently among the top causes. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable. One of the plants on today's list is sold at nearly every nursery in America. It lines driveways, borders, school playgrounds, and decorates the front of churches. And it has been quietly killing people for over 2,000 years. 2,000 years, and it still doesn't come with a warning label. Another one is so delicate, so romantic-looking, that people buy it as a Valentine's Day gift. They wrap it in tissue paper, tie a ribbon around the pot, and set it on a coffee table without knowing that for a cat, even brushing against the pollen can trigger kidney failure within hours. And the one that stopped me cold when I was researching this list? It's a wildflower. It's marketed as a native pollinator plant, good for bees, good for the environment, easy to grow. And it killed Abraham Lincoln's mother. Let that sit for a second. Today, we're counting down the 7 most dangerous plants still being sold at nurseries right now, ranked by how genuinely dangerous they are. And for every single one, I'll give you a safer alternative that looks just as beautiful, costs just as little, and won't put your family or your pets at risk. I've spent years researching plant toxicity, cross-referencing sources like the ASPCA, the CDC, and poison control centers across the country to build this list. This isn't opinion. This is documented, reported, and in some cases fatal. And before we get into it, I want to ask you something honestly. If this video saves one pet, if it stops one parent from bringing home the wrong plant, or helps one cat owner connect the dots before it's too late, doesn't that deserve a like? Doesn't that deserve a share to the one friend you know who just bought a new houseplant and has no idea what's in it? Hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe because next week we're covering 5 plants that actually repel pests and are completely safe for kids and pets. That's a video you'll want to have waiting for you. Now, let's start the countdown. And I promise you, by the time we reach number 1, you will never walk through a nursery the same way again. Plant 1, lantana, the cheerful ground cover, with a dark side. Picture this. You walk into your local garden center on a Saturday morning in April. The sun is out, the air smells like fresh soil, and right there at the entrance, practically glowing, is a display of lantana. Clusters of tiny flowers in yellow, orange, red, and pink, all packed together like little fireworks frozen mid-burst. Butterflies are already circling the display pots. A handwritten sign says, "Low maintenance, full Sunday blooms all season." It looks like pure joy in a pot, and that's exactly the problem. Here's what the sign doesn't tell you. Those cheerful little berries that form after the flowers fade the small, dark ones that look almost identical to blueberries contain a toxin called lantidine A, and lantidine A does not play around. Most people walk right past this danger because the plant looks so completely harmless. But knowing this one fact puts you ahead of 9 out of 10 people who buy it every spring. Here's what happens inside the body. Lantidine disrupts bile flow in the liver, triggering a condition called hepatogenous photosensitization. In plain terms, the liver stops processing toxins, the body begins attacking itself, and in severe cases, exposure to sunlight alone starts damaging the skin from the inside out. It sounds like science fiction. It is not. In Australia, lantana poisoning in cattle has reached the scale of a genuine agricultural crisis. Entire herds have been lost. The plant spreads aggressively across pasture land, and livestock eat it without any instinct to avoid it. In the United States, Poison Control Center's document cases every single year, most of them involving toddlers between 1 and 3 years old who spotted the dark berries at ground level and did exactly what toddlers do. So here's the scenario. You have a sunny front yard. You want something colorful, low maintenance, and drought tolerant. You're at the nursery. The lantana is right there. It's affordable, and it looks incredible. Stop. Take one step to the left. Verbena gives you the exact same effect, the same low-growing habit, the same dense clusters of color, the same butterfly-attracting energy, and it is completely non-toxic to children, pets, and livestock. Same look, zero risk, easy swap. Plant 2, Autumn Crocus. It blooms when nothing else does. There's a reason for that. Imagine walking through your garden in late September. Everything has gone brown and tired. The summer flowers are finished. The beds look bare. And then, pushing straight up through the cold, bare soil, no leaves, no stem, nothing to announce it, a cluster of delicate purple blooms appears. Just the flower, alone. Like it materialized overnight. It looks almost otherworldly. And nurseries know exactly how to sell that feeling. What they rarely mention is this. Autumn crocus contains a compound called colchicine, a toxin so potent that pharmaceutical companies use it in chemotherapy drugs. In a lab, the dose is measured to the microgram. In the plant, there is no measured dose. There is just the toxin, waiting. This matters more than most people realize, because autumn crocus is frequently mistaken for wild garlic and edible spring crocuses. The leaves, when they eventually appear, look strikingly similar to wild garlic. Foragers across Europe have made this mistake. Some of them did not survive it. Colchicine doesn't target one organ and stop there. It works by blocking cell division entirely, the fundamental process that keeps your body repairing and renewing itself. Once ingested, symptoms begin with a burning sensation in the mouth and throat, followed by severe vomiting and diarrhea. Then the damage moves deeper. Kidney failure, liver failure, bone marrow suppression. The body essentially loses its ability to maintain itself at the cellular level. There is no antidote. In the autumn of 2009, a German family foraged what they believed was wild garlic from a woodland area and prepared it as part of a meal. 2 family members were hospitalized in critical condition. The culprit, confirmed by toxicologists, was autumn crocus. The plant had been growing alongside genuine wild garlic, indistinguishable to the untrained eye. So here's the scenario. It's early September. Your garden looks exhausted. You're at the nursery looking for anything that will give you color when everything else has given up. The autumn crocus is sitting there in a small pot, labeled Rare Fall Bloomer. It is rare. It is also one of the most toxic plants found in the entire temperate world. Plant saffron crocus instead. It blooms at the same time of year, produces the same delicate purple petals, and grows in the same conditions. The difference? Saffron crocus gives you one of the most prized spices on earth. You go from planting something that can cause multi-organ failure to harvesting something you can cook with. That is not a small upgrade. Plant pothos. The internet's favorite houseplant is lying to you. Type the words "easy houseplants for beginners" into any search engine and pothos will appear within the first 3 results. Every time, without fail. It trails elegantly from hanging baskets, drapes itself down bookshelves, and sits confidently on kitchen counters in homes across the world. Interior designers love it. Plant influencers swear by it. Nurseries sell it by the thousands every single week. It has become, without question, the mascot of low-maintenance plant ownership, and that reputation is exactly what makes it dangerous. The ASPCA lists pothos as toxic to both cats and dogs. Inside those glossy, heart-shaped leaves are microscopic, needle-shaped structures called calcium oxalate crystals, and they are embedded throughout every part of the plant. When an animal chews a leaf or a trailing vine, those crystals don't dissolve. They fire directly into the soft tissue of the mouth and throat like tiny shards of glass, triggering an immediate and intense inflammatory response. In small animals, particularly cats, the resulting swelling can narrow the airway to the point where breathing becomes labored. Here's what makes this especially frustrating. Pothos is not marketed with any of this information. The tag in the pot says, easy care, low light, fast growing. It does not say, keep away from your cat. Most buyers have genuinely no idea because nothing in the buying experience tells them to ask. Veterinary poison hotlines in the United States receive thousands of pothos-related calls every year. The pattern is almost always the same. A cat chews a trailing vine out of curiosity, begins drooling and pawing at its mouth, and the owner, confused and frightened, calls the vet having no idea the plant was even a risk. Some cases resolve quickly. Others require emergency intervention. Picture this. You've just moved into a new apartment. You want it to feel alive, green, effortlessly stylish. You grab a pothos from the nursery without a second thought. It's cheap, it's beautiful, and every apartment you've ever admired on social media seems to have one. You get home, set it on the shelf, and your cat is already watching it from across the room with that particular focused stillness that means only one thing. Spider plants and tradescantia give you the same trailing, lush aesthetic, the same cascading green energy, and both are completely non-toxic to cats, dogs, and toddlers. Same look, same ease of care, none of the risk. Number 4 is one that people actually give as a gift, a romantic gift. And if the person receiving it has a cat at home, it might be the most quietly dangerous present they've ever been handed. Hyacinth. Sold as a symbol of love, deadly to the pet waiting at home. Walk into any florist or garden center between February and April, and you will find them immediately. Dense, upright spikes of flowers in deep purple, soft pink, and clean white, packed so tightly they look almost architectural. The fragrance hits you before you even reach the display sweet, heavy, unmistakably spring. They arrive in decorative pots with ribbons already tied around them, practically gift-wrapped and ready to go. And that is precisely the problem. Hyacinth bulbs contain oxalic acid alongside a group of narcissus-like alkaloids that attack the body on 2 fronts simultaneously, disrupting the nervous system and the gastrointestinal tract at the same time. The bulb holds the highest concentration of toxin, but the leaves and flowers are not safe either. For cats specifically, this matters more than it does for most other animals. A cat's liver metabolizes certain alkaloid compounds in a fundamentally different way than a human or even a dog does, making them significantly more vulnerable to the same level of exposure. Even the bulbs themselves are hazardous before the plant ever blooms. Gardeners who handle hyacinth bulbs without gloves regularly develop a condition known informally as hyacinth itch, a persistent skin irritation and dermatitis caused by the oxalic acid crystals present on the bulb's surface. This is a plant that causes harm before it even flowers. Every March and April, veterinary clinics across the country report a predictable and entirely preventable surge in hyacinth poisoning cases. Dogs dig up freshly planted bulbs from garden beds and swallow them whole. Some have required emergency surgery to remove bulb material from the digestive tract. Cat owners have left for work in the morning with a gift hyacinth sitting on the kitchen counter and returned in the evening to find their pet collapsed and in acute distress. The timeline between exposure and serious symptoms can be just a matter of hours. Here's the scenario. It's Valentine's Day, or Easter Sunday, or simply a Tuesday when you want to do something thoughtful. You're at the florist. The hyacinth smells extraordinary. It looks elegant. It costs almost nothing. You buy it, bring it home, set it on the coffee table right at the level where your 2 cats spend most of their afternoon, and you think nothing more of it. Freesia gives you everything the hyacinth promises. The same intoxicating fragrance, the same delicate spring colors, the same graceful, gift-worthy presentation, and it is completely non-toxic. Give the gesture without the hidden consequence. Angel's trumpet. It smells like heaven at night. It can put you in a coma by morning. There is a moment, just after sunset, when a garden with angel's trumpet becomes something almost supernatural. The enormous hanging flowers, some as long as a grown man's forearm, release a fragrance so rich and sweet it stops people mid-conversation. White, peach, and soft yellow blooms drift downward like bells from a cathedral ceiling. The plant grows fast, fills space dramatically, and commands attention in a way that very few garden plants can match. Nurseries know exactly what they have when they stock it. They place it front and center. And buyers, drawn in by the scent and the spectacle, rarely think to ask questions. They should. Every single part of Angel's trumpet roots, stems, leaves, flowers, seeds contains a group of compounds called tropane alkaloids, specifically scopolamine, atropine, and hyoscyamine. Together, these chemicals do something that most toxins don't. They don't attack one system. They jam the entire nervous system simultaneously, blocking the receptors that regulate heart rate, body temperature, digestion, and conscious thought all at once. Doctors call this anticholinergic toxidrome. It begins with dry mouth and confusion, escalates to hallucinations and seizures, and in serious cases, progresses to coma. The transition from the first symptom to a medical emergency can happen within a single hour. Children are drawn to the flowers instinctively. They hang at eye level, they smell extraordinary, and they look like something from a storybook. Pets investigate the blooms that fall to the ground. Neither a child nor an animal can tell you what they've touched or tasted until the symptoms are already moving through their body. In Colombia and parts of South America, where brugmansia grows wild along roadsides, emergency rooms treat cases of accidental and deliberate poisoning with grim regularity. Scopolamine extracted from plants in the same family is known on the street as devil's breath and has been documented in criminal cases where victims were rendered completely compliant and later had no memory of what had happened to them. Teenagers in multiple countries have brewed the flowers into tea, chasing a rumored hallucinogenic effect. Some were hospitalized in states of violent, uncontrollable delirium. Several did not survive. You want a dramatic focal point for your backyard. Something that fills the evening air with fragrance and makes every guest stop and stare the moment they step outside. Angel's trumpet delivers all of that without question. Mandevilla delivers it two trumpet-shaped blooms, vigorous climbing growth, the same visual drama, and it will not put anyone in your household in an emergency room. That is the version you want. Plant 6U. The hedge outside your neighbor's house has a 2,000-year kill count. It is so common that most people have stopped seeing it. Dark green, dense, perfectly clipped into neat formal walls along driveways and property lines. Yew is the backbone of traditional landscaping across Britain, Europe, and the northeastern United States. It surrounds churchyards. It borders school playgrounds. It frames the entrances of hospitals. It has been there so long and looks so thoroughly unremarkable that it has become essentially invisible. That invisibility is what makes it so consistently dangerous. Yew contains compounds called taxine alkaloids, and they work in a way that sets them apart from almost every other plant toxin on this list. Most poisons announce themselves nausea, burning, vomiting, giving the body time to respond. Taxine skips that process. It moves directly to the heart, disrupting the electrical signals that regulate cardiac rhythm, and it can trigger sudden cardiac arrest with almost no preceding symptoms and no antidote. A child who eats a small handful of berries may show no distress at all before collapsing. The berries are the cruelest detail. The red flesh surrounding the seed is mildly sweet, genuinely palatable, and they hang in bright clusters at exactly the height a young child can reach. The seed inside is where the lethal concentration of taxine sits. Children across the United Kingdom have been hospitalized after eating yew berries from garden hedges. Livestock have died within hours of consuming clippings left on the ground after a trim. In 54 BC, the Gaelic chieftain Catavolcus chose to poison himself with yew extract rather than surrender to Julius Caesar's advancing army. He understood precisely what the plant was capable of. The same compound Taxol, derived from the Pacific yew, is now one of the most widely used chemotherapy agents in modern oncology. In a laboratory, the dose is measured, controlled, and monitored. In the hedge outside your neighbor's house, there is no measurement and no control. If you want a dense, evergreen privacy hedge that looks established, formal, and grows quickly, Arborvitae gives you every one of those qualities. It will not kill a horse if a branch falls into the adjacent field. That distinction matters more than most people ever consider. White snake root. The wildflower that killed a president's mother is still being sold as a garden plant. It looks like something you would find growing at the edge of a woodland path, small clusters of soft white flowers on tall, branching stems, the kind of plant that blends naturally into a meadow or a shaded garden border. It is deer-resistant. It supports native pollinators. It requires almost no maintenance. In the native plant sections of nurseries across the eastern United States, it is sold as an ecological choice, a responsible choice, a choice that gives something back to the environment. Every single one of those things is true, and none of them tell you what this plant has actually done. White snake root contains a toxin called trematol. On its own, trematol is dangerous enough, but its most devastating characteristic is not what it does to the person who touches the plant directly. It is what happens when a cow grazes on it. Trematol passes through the animal's system and concentrates in the milk. Anyone who then drinks that milk absorbs the toxin secondhand, with no knowledge of any exposure and no reason to suspect the glass of milk they just drank from a trusted local source. This is how it killed Nancy Hanks Lincoln in the autumn of 1818. She was 34 years old. Her son Abraham was 9. She fell ill with what frontier communities called milk sickness, progressive muscle weakness, violent trembling, relentless vomiting, and a descending confusion that ended in coma. She died within a week of her first symptoms. Her husband Thomas built her coffin himself from green lumber cut from the surrounding forest. She was not alone. Milk sickness swept through frontier settlements across Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio for decades, killing entire families and driving communities to abandon their land entirely. Whole towns disappeared. Survivors moved on without understanding why their neighbors had died or why the same fate kept following them from one settlement to the next. The disease had no name that meant anything. Doctors had no explanation. People simply got sick, trembled, and died. The toxin accumulates. That is the detail that makes trematol uniquely insidious. A single large exposure is dangerous. But repeated small exposures, a cup of milk here, another there, build in the body over time, compounding silently until the threshold is crossed. There is no safe low dose with repeated contact. It was not a physician who finally solved the mystery. In the 1830s, a Native American healer named Anna Bixby traced the pattern of illness to white snake root growing in the pastures where affected cattle grazed. She brought her findings to a local doctor named Thomas Minor, who eventually published the connection. The medical establishment took nearly another century to formally accept it. By then, the plant had already shaped the course of American history in ways no one had ever anticipated. White coneflower Echinacea alba gives you the same open, airy wildflower aesthetic, the same support for native pollinators, the same effortless, naturalistic look in a shaded border. It has over 200 years of documented use as a medicinal plant. It has never once been linked to the collapse of a frontier settlement. That is the swap, and it is not a difficult one to make. 3 more you should know before you leave. Before we close out, there are 3 plants that didn't make the main countdown but absolutely deserve a mention because you will encounter them, and you should know what you're looking at. Wisteria. Those cascading curtains of purple blooms that make every garden fence look like a painting. Stunning, genuinely one of the most beautiful flowering vines in existence. The seeds in pods, however, contain compounds that cause severe vomiting and can be seriously harmful to children and dogs who chew on the fallen pods. Admire it from a distance. Keep it well out of reach. Bleeding heart. The name alone sounds like a warning. Delicate, arching stems with heart-shaped pink and white flowers that hang like tiny pendants. It is genuinely beautiful in a shaded border. But it contains isoquinoline alkaloids that affect the nervous system, and for cats and dogs, ingestion causes trembling, difficulty breathing, and in larger amounts, seizures. The charm does not outweigh the risk if you have pets. Lily of the Valley. Do not let the size fool you. Those tiny white bell-shaped flowers look completely harmless, almost miniature, almost sweet. But lily of the valley contains cardiac glycosides from the same chemical family as foxglove, the plant doctors once used to treat heart failure because the line between a therapeutic dose and a lethal one is razor thin. A small child or a curious cat does not need much. Treat it with the same caution you would give any plant on the main list. 5 things to do before you buy another plant. Now that you know what's out there, here is exactly what to do with that knowledge. First, before you buy any plant at all, search its scientific name alongside the word toxicity. Not the common name, because common names are inconsistent and often misleading. The scientific name. It takes 10 seconds on your phone while you're still standing in the nursery aisle. 10 seconds is a reasonable price for certainty. Second, save this number in your phone right now, before this video ends. 1-888-426-4435. That is the ASPCA Animal Poison Control Hotline. It operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year. If your pet has eaten something and you are not sure what it was, that number is your first call, not a search engine, not a forum. That number. Third, if a child or a pet has ingested a plant and you cannot immediately identify it, take a clear photograph of the plant before you leave the house. Bring it with you to the emergency room or the veterinary clinic. Toxicologists and veterinarians can identify a plant from a photograph in minutes, and that identification can determine the entire course of treatment. It is the single fastest thing you can do to help. Fourth, consider building a dedicated pet-safe zone in your garden using only plants verified by the ASPCA as non-toxic. Lavender, marigolds, sunflowers, and roses are all safe, all beautiful, and all genuinely easy to grow. A garden does not have to choose between being stunning and being safe. It can be both. Bonus tip, keep a plant log on your phone, a simple note listing every plant in your home and garden by name. It takes 5 minutes to create and you will likely never need it. But if you do need it, it will be the first thing a vet or a poison control specialist asks for. Have it ready. We started this video with a question. What if the plant on your windowsill was quietly dangerous and you had no idea? Now you know the answer. And more than that, you know what to look for, what to swap out, and exactly what to do if something goes wrong. That knowledge belongs to you now. It doesn't expire. It doesn't need updating. It just needs to be shared. Which plant on this list genuinely surprised you? Was it the pothos trailing across your bookshelf, the yew hedge you've walked past 100 times, or the wildflower that quietly shaped American history? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to know which one stopped you cold. If this video gave you something useful, share it with one person in your life who loves plants and has never thought to check whether they're safe. That one share might matter more than you know. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next week where we are covering 5 plants that actively repel pests, support pollinators, and are completely safe for children and pets. See you there.